love it. So let me see if I hit record. So yeah. So hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Divine Rich and Free Life, the place to be if you want to ignite your inner power and live your life with more peace, passion and joy. My name is Moni Rodriguez. I'm an author, speaker and a women's leadership mentor, and I'm super mega excited to have an amazing woman with me today, because I've been willing to interview Lisa since the moment I came to know her work. I really admire what she's doing, especially because I love the energy and authenticity she has with the work she's doing. And so Lisa is from a lineage of traveler women who has worked with herbs, stars, and folk medicine to intuit, predict, and heal. She's an artist, an author of 3 books, I think, more than impactful in the work that I've been in contact with, a well woman therapist and a womb and fertility massage practitioner, sharing cycle living, rhythmic intelligence, and in your body mental practices with her followers. I know you do something about flow yoga as well. I'm very excited to have you here, Lisa, because all that you do is very intuitive. It's very connected with the she power. So it's all about tapping into your feminine power and authenticity of being you authentically. So welcome. I want you to introduce yourself, how you got into doing so much magic in the world and sharing your authentic self and becoming an author. I know you are a self-published author, but I also know a Hay House author. So how you got into this and what made you transition into this career and do your service in the world?
That's a big question. Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
so, well, where to start? So, the I used to be a journalist. I still am to a certain extent, but I was a journalist. I trained to be. I trained in media and culture, and I enjoyed it very much. I used to work on TV shows. I used to work in that field, which was amazing. Like, I loved it. And I loved it because I didn't have to be in connection with my body, because I was just working really fast. Like, I was eating whatever I wanted to eat. I didn't really care like what my body was up to, because I was doing amazing things that I really wanted to do in the world. Like, you know, I had very clear visions and dreams of, I wanted to interview pop stars. I wanted to like be in that world. So, and I was, and so I was I very much enjoyed it. But as I was saying, the body mind connection was tricky. And what I know now that I didn't know then is that will kick you in the ovaries at some point, genuinely. So, you know, so there was some time when I was bleeding way more than I wasn't. So my monthly cycle was like more bleed days than it wasn't. I didn't know anything about periods then. It was just really bloody annoying. Like, it was so inconvenient, so annoying. So I took whatever a doctor would tell me to take, I'd take to make it go away. Can you just stop? Because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to know about it. But of course, inevitably, when we do that, we can often break, and something will have to give. Like, it's not we often break. I mean, we will we will break. So through a process of elimination, because that's how it is with women's health, the doctors did all the tests, came back, said, so Lisa, you've got PCOS and you've got endometriosis, and because you're not going to be able to have children, we're just going to whip it out. I was like, sorry what?
Excuse me?
And there's we're just going to we can just whip your womb out, and then you can just get straight back to what you were doing. So that was like in one 10-15 minute appointment. So there's a few things at play. One of them was, okay, so we know what it is. So I'd gone through, you know, a couple of years of gnarly periods, like really painful periods that I was just medicating so I could keep doing the thing that I thought I really wanted to do. And then And then I was so there was that. And then there was the fact that this dude in a white coat was, so I also quite like the label. I was like, oh, there's a label now. Like old me loved the idea that that's a thing. I've got a thing. Okay, this is okay. When I've got a thing, we can figure this out. Okay, so how are we going to fix the thing? So the doctor in the white coat, the dude in the white coat, decided to, like, he could fix the thing. How he would fix the thing was to take the womb out. Like, he was going to whip it out. I'm like, all right, not entirely adverse to it at that moment in time. It had been so painful, so gnarly, that I was like, okay, if that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to do. As he went on, he started to talk about my uterus, and I was like, but you just talked about my womb. And he was like, yeah, they're the same thing. And I was 26 at the time, and I didn't know that my womb and my uterus were the same thing. That's messy. But now, from doing I think, I thought it was messy. Another thing for us as women to kind of blame and shame ourselves for. At the time, I was like, oh, okay. Like in that blame and shame space. And then a little bit, so I left there. He gave me a pamphlet, and said, we'll make an appointment for you to have your womb taken out. Like, that was it. There was no opportunity to discuss it. No. Anyway, I left with the pamphlet, but what I felt when I left was this like real, like deep, and it wasn't the same pain that I got with, and I've talked about this a lot, so I'm sorry if you are hearing this again, but like, it's like, it was like a deep, deep pain, but like ancient pain. And that's how I can explain it now, but at the time I couldn't. But anyway, at the time, it was just like, there was a feeling in my womb space that wasn't the PCOS, that wasn't the endometriosis. It was actually something way deeper than that. That was just like, this is a call to action. It's a call to your own action, to your own self awareness, your own self-knowledge, your own self-psychology, like to pay attention, to really pay attention to what's going on here and come back home, like to come back in to, like, I was disconnected from here, so like to actually have to reconnect to that space. Anyway, there was a whole series of very weird, mystical, magical events, because whilst you mentioned in the intro that I am from a lineage of women considered to, what some would consider to be witches, some would consider just to be medicine women, some would consider just to be normal women who had a little touch of the magic, is that I did shun that for a little while, because I wanted to interview pop stars, because I wanted to be normal, because I wanted to be seen as like, and that, what I recognize now was my call back home. It was like, yeah, you did that, but actually that's not what you're here to do, Lisa. You can enjoy that and you can still do that, but you have to do it from a very connected place. So a series of events happened that, were very magical, mystical, and also very funny for a very cynical journalist at the time, like myself, which had me sitting on a stone in Glastonbury, like kind of astride this like stone that this woman was telling me was where women used to bleed on. I'm like, are you kidding me? I ain't sitting on no stone. Like, what? Anyway, I'm sitting on this. I'm sitting like, that was the cynical journalist in me. Sat on the stone and got a very clear message, very clear, like, you need to go study, you need to go find this out, you must not have your womb taken out, you must prove to yourself so that you can show other women what can be done, how it can be managed, also the magic that is held in that space that you have been disconnected for so long, disconnected from for so long. And so that's what I did, and so it's become a lifelong mission now, and it's meant that I've studied with some amazing people. I've gone and, been with grandmamas in like, and who massage wombs, and like, really with people that understand the magic that we hold in, as women in our medicine bowl, what's held there, which isn't just a few organs that kind of do a few things. It's like, actually, the potentiality that we hold, it is our cauldron. It is a space to make magic, and that can be sexual magic, that can be power, that can be sensuality that can be like what we need in order to get a thing done, to take action. And that's all held in that space, because that's what holds our rhythmic nature. It's what holds our connection to source. It's what holds our connection to like our reflection almost to Mama Nature. So that's what I've been doing.
Wow.
That's what so it started there. It started from that appointment, and so from now on.
Yeah, I love it, because in this moment I feel that we have two choices: to keep like, shutting down the soul or the intuition and not listening, and then going into that, place of, well, getting things in life that gets worse. Because I feel like when you got into that space where there was a crisis on the health, or also you are kind of somehow you took your power back, right? Because sometimes you go to the doctor and they tell you, oh, this is what we are gonna do, and it might well be the path, but it might not well be the path, because we don't listen to our bodies. And I think you are a very good example of the power of listening to the body. And I feel like most of the women that I work with as well, I hear a lot like how much disconnection we have with our bodies. And I particularly, I'm thinking about one client of mine now, and we were talking about the womb, and her periods as well. They were, lasting longer and more painful. And she's like, I think there is something here for me to listen. And it's like, wow, we are getting into that space where we are trusting intuition, where we remove the fear of being burned in the stick, because we have this ancestral knowledge in our bodies that is screaming out to come out now. And in the years to come, I feel like people will be challenged to listen, right? So you listened to this, and obviously you has become a very much successful writer. I want to also tap into the creative power, because I just say the womb is the space of creation. You can create amazing, experiences for yourself in terms of enjoying your pleasure, because I feel we are disconnected from pleasure as well. So I wanted to discuss a bit on like that link between allowing yourself to receive pleasure, allowing yourself to connect with the womb space and create, whether that is a book, a piece of art, baby, or whatever you want. But how can you create? Because I feel that's the creative power, right? Your sexual energy, your womb space is where you connect with the universe. The doors is the source of everything, of creation. So for those people, like, that we are in that space, that we want to expand that way of living life, listening more into the intuition and the womb space. What would you say, like, what helped you, and how do you see that being able to be ignited in people? What do they need to do if they want to write a book, or they want to birth anything in the world, but they fear that they are not capable, or they are not able to have create? Because I hear a lot, I'm not creative. I believe everyone is creative, right?
I hear the same, but I also hear that we live in a world where women have been disconnected from their bodies for so long. I had to experience what I experienced so that I have a pathway that I can at least share. I don't call myself a teacher of this work. I'm literally a woman experiencing it, right? So I'm in it with you. Like, I haven't got any of it figured out. All I know is what I can only share, what it is that's unfolded for me in my experience as this particular woman, right? So and what I do know is that we do live in a world that wants us to be disconnected, because it serves the bigger purpose. It serves the bigger patriarchal goal, which is to keep us compliant, which is to keep us showing up a certain way, to keep us showing up broken, for us to think we're broken, to think that there's constantly something wrong that we have to fix. So that kind of disconnect, so just that disconnect is from that space, from so whilst there are some people that really do suffer from like dissociation disorders and things like that, there is also a bigger kind of body dissociation at play, keeping us disconnected from our true nature, our true experience as a woman in her power. Because a woman in her power is deemed quite scary, and a woman in her creative power, she's non-compliant. Like, she's not tame, because how can you be if you are a woman who is like tuned in to her cyclic nature, you'll know and recognize that in that cyclic nature, there are times of ebb and there are times of flow.
Exactly.
Because you'll know when is good for you to create and when isn't, when there's a time more to edit and to kind of hunker down and do the thing, and the other time to dream into it. You know, there's in all of the phases, you know, I talk a lot about the Creatrix codes, which is ultimately how we connect to that creative power through our cyclic nature. And it's, you know, it's super available to us, right? It's super available to us, and it doesn't have to be tricky. But know that there are forces at play that don't want you to connect to that power, because if you do, and you do connect from, and you do create from that space, what you do create won't be affected by advertising on the TV, won't be affected by some big brand is telling you you have to do, or some big influencer or social media kind of coach who tells you can make six figures.
Oh my God.
Like, which, you know, all of those people, like, these are models, right? These are old models, old paradigms. Like, you have the capability of creating what is necessary, not what you're being told you need to create in order to create a life that you think you should have because you've been told to. If you tune into your body, if you connect with that, and I appreciate that isn't easy, so I'm putting, you know, I'm not, that is the kind of disclaimer that comes with it, is the reconnection process is actually, you know, a thing. Like, we really have to work on that first and foremost, and that's a daily practice of even just tapping our bodies to make sure we're in it, to make sure we haven't kind of left it, because actually living in this world is tricky sometimes. So actually having to do that daily reconnect of like, right, okay, I'm in my body, then moving with that body, then finding some pleasure in that body, then recognizing that you have this cyclic flow of creativity, as well as, you know, if you're a woman and you bleed, for example, then you can work with that menstrual flow. If you're someone who associates yourself as a woman, if you're someone who is a woman and doesn't bleed anymore, then there's other ways in which we can do that through the process of the moon, through the understanding of like the cyclic nature of nature. You know, so no one's left out here. We all have this capability, but if you do have a womb, like, I also want to understand, I want us to understand that there is power in it. And if you don't have one, there's an energetic force there that is capable of understanding and working with that flow too. So, you know, we've got lots of good, juicy stuff to work with, but we have to recognize that we have to tap into it. Like, it's the potentiality is always there. It's just sat there in that beautiful pelvic bowl of yours. There's a potentiality, and the potentiality for anything, like absolutely anything. You know, like Moni said, whether it's like a baby, whether it's, you know, what we're looking to do is create fecund ground, like fertile, yummy, lush space in your body, so that creativity is joyful. So that creating is a joyful practice. And so that's where we get our power back, is through the act of creativity, through the act of understanding that creativity is juiced by knowing our senses. It's like by really touching and feeling and smelling and really being in our body. So using those senses to be in the body. And then once in the body, recognizing, okay, what do I need? What brings me pleasure? Because we can ask those questions like 100 times. But if we aren't connected to this body, we don't know what we need, because we've been told for so long what it is we need. Like, oh, you know, you need this cream for your face. You need this for your eyes. You need this. You need to wear these clothes to be accepted. You need to, like, oh, you're spiritual. You can't have fresh nails. All of those things. Like, we're told a million stories, right? We're told a million stories about how we're meant to show up. But the real deal is when we connect with ourselves, we realize what it is we actually need. And sometimes that can be like something very small. Sometimes it can be like, this location doesn't work for me anymore. Like, I can't be here and be creative. And then that's when we can start understanding more, like trusting our intuitive nature. Now, the thing is, we don't trust ourselves either. And that's another thing we beat ourselves up for. So, so everyone's saying, oh, yeah, tap into your intuitive nature. Like, yeah, you kidding me? Like, how am I meant to trust this one? Like, I get, people, more women than ever are suffering from like depression and anxiety, because they're not connected to their cyclic nature, because they're not connected to their true expression, right? So then if we're following that lead, if we're trusting our bodies and we're in anxiety or we're in depression, then that's not going to be a fecund space for creativity. Again, not your fault, but understanding, like, I posted a meme ages ago and I still love it. Like when people say, trust your gut. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I've got anxiety. Trusting my gut would be like, I would be like saying yes to things I meant to say no to. I'd be saying no to things I meant to say yes to. And that's the truth. If we're not connected fully to ourselves and understanding what it is we need, which is a process, by the way. It's not like a 5-point plan and a click your fingers, see what happens situation. It's a process, and it's a process of love and compassion and grace, like that you have to lavish upon yourself on a minute by minute basis because of the conditioning that we've been the boxes we've been put in, the conditioning we've had placed upon us, the belief systems that we've picked up, whether that's societal, whether that's familial. There's a lot going on. And so a lot of it has to begin with just a little bit of compassion and love for ourselves and this body that we're in, and giving it a bit of space to figure out who it is. Who am I? Like, what do I need? What do I want? And not what the messaging from outside is telling us we need and want. So I think that's a really long-winded way of answering your question. Even if I did at all, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's super powerful because I think I feel you're super creative, and it just like flows through you, like the truth, of who we are. And I was listening to you because what came to me was like, oh, you need to ask about trust, and you just mentioned about trust, and that's that space of authenticity of what you mentioned on who a spiritual person how a spiritual person looks like, or what a successful business looks like. And you mentioned about 6 figures, 7 figures, and I was like, I completely get you, sister, because that's where I was like, this is all paradigm. We try to be in that power, but at the moment we are really playing on that old system. We are going back to unconsciousness, I feel like, in a way, right? Because this is old and it doesn't work for society, because people is, as you say, not connected, men and women, but especially for women. I think our deepest power is when we are connected to the body, because then we can listen and hear what we truly need. But like what comes to me to ask about, how did you gave permission to yourself? Because you knew there was something, but then most of the women, or sometimes we go into that space where we don't allow ourselves to go for it. I'm someone who trusts a lot herself, but I was not like this before. And I think there was a point in my life where it was all or nothing. I knew I needed to do it. I didn't want necessarily at that point of time to be seen. I was afraid for showing who I truly am. But the moment I went back into my heart and I trusted that it was time to listen to the calling, because that was what I needed to do in the world, right? And then you find a way, like the universe she brings you things in life when you respond to this intuitive insight, or you respond to your heart. But what did you do to allow yourself to be fully expressed in the world, or to go into that path of authenticity? And if you need to create a card deck, you create it, and you trust it's the best deck ever because you know it will serve the women that are meant to serve, or the men. How did you go into writing these books and choosing to self-publish versus not self-publish? How did you find the process in your life to know that you were constantly, because that's what came through me, like, you're very authentic, you just express yourself with so much pure honesty that it comes through. And I think that's what people appreciate more than the marketing campaign that you do, right? Because you mentioned something. I want you to explain how you got your book into the space of women when you just shared that book and it went through people's hands and you didn't necessarily do a massive campaign or massive publicity, and it was a big success for you. So that's just trusting yourself, right? You just did what it made sense to you, right? So that's I don't know, I know it's many questions in one, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, went for it, allow yourself to receive and go into the process of being authentic.
It's a lot. You're right, there's a lot of questions, but we can figure that out. There's bits, right? So the first bit is, how do I trust myself on the daily? I'm recognizing that, okay, so that journey for me, that appointment started when I was 26. I'm 41 now. This is still a daily practice, and there are still days when I question the shit out of myself. There are some days where I am totally disconnected, put on Real Housewives, watch binge all day, because I don't want to deal with the reality of what it means to be a woman in the world, right? There's also, I mess up all the time. I'm willing to do that. That's the difference. So, I make decisions that others would, if someone looking in was overseeing the Lisa situation, there would be a little bit of why is she doing that? What's she doing? But I have to trust that there's a reason why I don't go down, a route that's shown to me. I see a route. This looks amazing. This would be super easy for you, Lisa. Just get on and do it. Some of it will be to do with your astrology, right? Some of it will be to do with where the stars were aligned when you were cosmically born, what your kind of cosmic blueprint is in the world in terms of how you show up. That's a given. And that's why I kind of don't feel how these kind of marketing techniques and systems fit everyone. But you said something about how it is old paradigm. Yes, it is, but it still currently works, which is why people still do it, right? So it's almost like it's still got a little bit of life in it. It's all kind of fighting for those last breaths, of life. And so, it's I still can get 6 figures if I do it this way. And so it's going to keep, we're still in we're in a transition period between the Piscean age and the Aquarian age, right? So that Piscean old energy is it's really strong still. It's still got, it's crumbling on the, it's crumbling every day, but we are still living within it. And so we've got to recognize that so seeing the bigger picture and recognizing that's still in transition, right? So expecting ourselves to have it figured out is a really tough one. I see it more now, which I'm grateful for, is that people aren't so caught up in the gloss, aren't so kind of mesmerized by the smoke and mirrors of, I'm a successful businesswoman. Look at me. And having all these great kind of shots done. I mean, of which there is nothing wrong with, but just recognizing that if it's not you, then it can work for a little bit, but not for a long bit, because it's painful. And so I think for me, what it comes down to is I was in pain, literally. My ovaries, my womb were in pain. And so because I wasn't listening to my source, I wasn't listening to my intuition. I didn't even know what my freaking intuition was. My body had to hurt. Where we are trying to get to, and this is what I wish for everyone, because I think this is all we've got, is can we get to a place where we can try to trust ourselves on the daily, rather than looking outside ourselves for that validation for those things that kind of should quote unquote be the things that make us successful, or all of those things. So recognizing that I have to do that on the daily, is to come back into connection with this body through movement. For me, it's not true for everyone. Chanting is a really good one. I hate speaking out loud, and people can do all the positive thinking they want to on me, where they say if you say you hate it, Lisa, you'll hate it, whatever. I hate it. Like, I hate speaking in public, but I love being with women. Right? So I love being in circle. I love gathering with women. So suck it up. Like, there are some things I have to suck up. And so in order to do that, I have to, I chant so that I get really comfortable in my vocal cords. I do a lot of breath work with my cervix to make sure that because both of them are, again, we have that kind of replication between our throat and our cervix. So lots of breath work from there to there in order to keep that channel super clear. Because any tension held in our throat will be held in our cervix. So that takes away a lot of sexual pleasure for a lot of people. And if we're not getting sexual pleasure, speaking out and being creative can completely be compromised by that, in the same way that if we compromise our voice, if we don't speak out, if we don't create, if we don't kind of put up our truest expression and share that in the world, instead of someone else's version of what we're told is successful, then that will affect like our cervix. That will create tension there, tightness, and it will take away a lot of the juiciness, literally kind of sap us dry. And then if we're sapped dry, then we can't create in our fullest ability, in our fullest form. So that for me is fundamental. Is the coming in, is the breathing, they're the facts, they're the kind of practicals in terms of connecting to this one and being able to share. The actual, so going back to the book, the book and how to do that on your terms. So I've self-published and I've published with publishers. I've worked in the industry for about 20 years now, in different ways, as an author, as an editor, as so from both sides. I've seen a lot of the industry. The landscape's really interesting to understand, and as a creative, sometimes it is better to create on your own. It is better to self-publish. Like, there used to be a lot of kind of negativity around self-publicity, that it was seen as vanity projects rather than, but that was because there were lots of publishers that held it was kind of like a big gate, and there were gatekeepers to knowledge. Now the world's not like that. You can Google anything. You can self-publish something way more beautiful even than some publishers can. And that's not to say that publishing with a publisher isn't a beautiful route. If it suits you and it's right for you, then perfect. But also recognizing that right now we're in really good times where, like, we can be as creative as we want in any way we want to be, and it's pretty much and also the speed in which we can do that now as well. So if I'm creating a deck or I'm creating a book, I would check in, so that each thing in terms of, so I would check in with my body, really sit with her, ask a few questions. Sometimes she'll answer, sometimes she won't. And so again, that's what I don't want it to be like, oh, she's got a direct connection to source. No, sometimes it's very quiet in there. And so we have to also recognize, when we're asking kind of divine power, when we're asking like mama, she, if we're whoever we choose to talk to, that is actually a direct reflection of us. So ultimately, we're not we're connecting just to a higher version of ourselves. There's not all the answers. That's kind of it. And so by connecting to our body, that connectivity with that higher source, with that version of whatever you choose to call, whether it's God, goddess, any of those things, is going to be better. That I know for sure in this body. So connecting with my body, then asking the questions to the higher me, to goddess, to she, and then being patient to receive, because again, we're in a really fast-paced world where people don't want us to take time to feel into, like, what? So you're going to feel into a response? Yes, I'm going to feel into a response. I'm not going to just come up with an idea and just go, I'm going to just do that. And so I'll use, exactly, right? So I'll use my head, and I'll use my heart, and I'll use my womb, and we'll come into it and create like an alignment with the three of them. And then trust from that space, okay, so if that needs to come out, then would that be something? And then I'll ask, you know, so for the last couple of books, I was meant to publish with a publisher. And that because of, and you know, I checked in, because before that I'd had a very successful self-published book, and I really loved the process. And so that was, you know, I loved the act of doing it, and then published with a publisher. Also, you know, interesting, different process. And having worked in the industry beforehand, and worked in children's publishing and as an editor and a author, you know, understanding that there's like loads of pros and cons to both. So that's why trusting yourself is really important, and trusting, like, okay, what's needed here, what's needed for the work, more importantly, and then recognizing that you are not the work. Like, so you are capable of creating the thing, but you're like, okay, so is this creating for me? And so sometimes, like, we're just literally in the act of creativity for ourselves. Like, oh, I want to draw a beautiful picture. Oh, I need to write a journal today to clear my space so that I can then get on with my work. Other times, it's like a piece of work will move through you that isn't for you. Like, it's literally for the collective, and the collective needs it, and they need it now. So that might be a blog post. That might be you know, that might be a self-published book, because you can, you know, you can write and turn that around much quicker than you can, you know, through the whole negotiation process of working with a publisher. Or there might be a piece of work so big that it needs holding, that you need support to hold that you need, like, it needs a structure. And that's where a publisher is super helpful, that it creates a really good structure for you to publish within. All of these things. So how I decide is literally through coming into my body and being very, you know, very, and sit with it, and sit with it, and sit with it some more. And I do that during my, for me, my menstrual flow, because that's a time to really, so when I'm bleeding is a time when I will, like, let any of the things that have got in the way of me making any decisions or any of that go with my bleed, and clear the space. Like, it's a clearing of space, so that I'm like, okay, so I'm an empty vessel. So I'm, you know, I'm basically in the void. I'm in the cosmic void, and anything is possible. So, like, we're talking about the, you know, the womb space. It's like, yeah, this is, anything is possible here. And in that space, and then I wait until kind of pre-ovulation, and then I'll plant a seed, and then I'll see if it grows and if it manifests. I'll do what's necessary. I don't just sit and wait. Like, I'll kind of, okay, I'll contact some people, I'll see, I'll write, I'll create, I'll see, I'll play. We don't play enough. Like, that period of time, that pre-ovulation phase in our menstrual cycle, and in our, you know, so if you're working with the moon, that will be the waxing moon. That phase is for playing, is for planting seeds, is for trying stuff out, is for kind of figuring things out. Is this possible? Do I want to do this? Does it feel good? Because sometimes we might just get an idea, and then we write it down, and then it's like, oh, actually it loses its fire, and it whimpers out before you do the thing, you know, before it gets to anywhere of get to a kind of place of kind of creation in terms of till it's manifested. And that's great, but you played, and you know, so many of us are scared to play because we think we have to be perfect, we think we have to have it figured out, and that we can only do a thing if it's going to get done and become a thing. And so then you use that second half of the cycle when the moon is waning, or if you're, you know, if you're in your premenstrual phase, that's where we can get good at editing. Like, do we still need this? Do we want this? Is it going to be of use? Is it going to be helpful? And then we come back into that, you know, that kind of cosmic void where we can let go of anything that didn't make any sense in that cycle. And then we keep hold of the gold. You know, it's like the treasure is found there. And that's how we, you know, and that's a very, 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 very basic kind of format of, like, you know, how we can use that cyclic flow. You know, there's so many beautiful kind of layers to that work, but ultimately recognizing that means that you get to really understand your self knowledge of how you create as well as a person, because you recognize that some of the things, when you're like, oh, I can't do it, I've got writer's block, generally you're not meant to be writing. You know, so see if that is the truth. It might just be that you are blocking, you know, there's some resistance there, and there's some old patterns that need clearing regarding, like, you know, whether you think you're worthy of being a writer and all of those things, for example. But it could just be you're in a part of your cycle, or part of the kind of moon cycle, or part of the cosmic cycle, depending if you follow astrology as well. That means that we're not meant to be creating at that time. And in fact, we're meant to be editing. We're meant to be figuring out stuff. We're meant to be doing the more practical stuff. There's lots to it, and it's super helpful. And then that becomes a very beautiful anchor to your intuition. And we trust ourselves a whole lot more when we understand that ourselves more. Like, and that's what I think when it comes to trusting ourselves, we just have to know ourselves more. We have to just get really familiar with our tendencies, with the places that we do find resistance.
I love it. I love it. So juicy. Everything you said is gold. As I was listening, know yourself is the key to everything. Like, you know, really listen and getting into that space of truly seeing all the patterns that come up. It's interesting you mentioned the writer's block, because I've been in that process myself, because I thought that I would have a date where the book will publish, and then the universe or myself or the stars or the moon or anything made me realize that I'm working in a different space now, this book is really much like a baby, and it's my own experience. Maybe other books are more, you know, like scheduled, and it will come up much easier, but it's about trusting. You know, I needed to trust myself and see if I had some fear of success, and or if I was just giving myself excuses not to write. And the only way to figure out is really, instead of looking for external approval, or you know, obviously it's great to work with professionals, like people who can help you in the path. Like me, I did your course, I went to Hay House Writers Workshop, I went to other places just to be in that space, but also to support myself in my new identity, if you want to say, because I think we are everything and we are nothing. We can be anything we want, but if you want to be a writer, obviously it's inside your heart as well. But it's good to get into the space, but at the end of the day, you need to do what you feel it makes sense for you, because I realize everyone has their own opinion and it's valid, but you know, which one are you going to trust? You need to trust yours first, and then go and obviously listen to people who has experience. But I love when you mention about, you know, the different cycles. I think you go much more in detail in your books, and they are available for people. But also, now that we are ending this kind of chat or interview, I wanted you to maybe just share a bit more on the kind of work you are doing now, but also if you have any projects coming, any upcoming books, because that would be interesting to know if you have anything to share with the audience. But also in terms of what you do, obviously I will put your website in the video and in my post, but anything you want to share, like I know you work very much into helping women with the cycles, with connecting with celebrating sensuality and all of this, but also you have workshops and your books and your deck and your readings. If you want to share anything that's coming now, I would love to share.
I'm just everything you shared is what I do, and there's nothing brand new happening right now, which is nice. It's good, and I think that's really important to share, is that, you know, people do podcasts, they do interviews when they want to pimp a thing, and it's like,
exactly,
actually, could we just come and chat?
That's what we
just come and show up. And so yeah, right, so it's cool. I mean, yeah, I do those things. I work with women around their menstrual cycle, if, you know, in terms of their health, but also in terms of their creativity, as we've spoken about here. Yes. And specifically if they're creating art and books, to understand the cyclic nature and how that can help us, because anything that makes life easier, really, honestly, yeah. That's what I'm about. Like, it doesn't have to be as hard as we've been told it is. Yeah. And in that, I am working on some new things. I'm working on, I mean, in terms of, I don't know when they're coming out, as you said, right? Like, it's like I keep thinking that they'll be soon, but who knows. So I'm working on a new card deck, which I'm very excited about, which has been a complete labor of love. The card decks are my favorite things. Like, they just are, and they're just complete, like, they just work through me and I work with them, and we hang out, and it's just like recognizing wisdom in ourselves, so that we can just keep reflecting it back at each other. So in every way. So anytime like someone posts it on Instagram, I'll repost it, because it's just a reflection of like, yeah, we might need that. So tools to support us as we navigate. So that's anything anything that's going to be moving through the Lisa Lister kind of body right now are going to be tools to help us navigate these interesting times which we are living in, and just to understand ourselves better, to kind of come into connection with ourselves through the rhythmic nature, through these, through understanding of ourselves, like, because that's literally it. We're told to fix it, and there's nothing to fix. Just understanding that we are gloriously perfect, just as we are.
I love it. I love you. I really love it, because it's just like going back to about how much we've forgotten, like how to really love ourselves and embrace our sexual energy, or our sexual kind of power, or our space that for many years was in shame, because I feel like when I talk to women in circles and stuff, like there's so much shame about talking about menstruation, period, wombs, all these things, and it's like, oh my God, but that's your creative force, that's your connection with ultimately source and divine and who you are, right? And that's why I wanted you to maybe have the opportunity to also talk to me and share with my women and my men now that are kind of following what I'm doing, because I think there's also many people. I mean, I know there's a lot of like kind of empowerment now about the feminine, and also allowing us to connect more into that authentic space, but still I feel this work is very raw for many people. They don't just really want to go there very much, because when I feel it's like Pandora's box. You open that space, you're open who you were all your life, as like you say, there's nothing to fix, it's just who you are in essence. But it's very scary sometimes to let go of stuff that really doesn't serve you, right? And express yourself with whatever you want to wear, whatever you want to be. And so that's why I feel it was very important for me to have you here and just get into knowing your story and also sharing your work. And as you say, there was no like, it's been something I was willing to do for some time, because it really helped me into go into my space of navigating this writing process, because it's all about listening. We were doing it with the phases of the moon, and very much aligned with that space of the void, and creating a container and just allow yourself to create anyways, right? So that's the first thing that it comes to mind, allowing yourself to explore what's down there and up here, and connecting everything. So thank you so much, Lisa, for coming here. I will share your website below, and obviously I look forward for people's feedback, and I look forward for your new creative stuff coming. And let's see what else is coming from you. I look forward to any books as well that you come out with. But I thank you so much.
There is movement. There is movement.
Yeah.
There is movement. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.